Today we're diving into a topic that doesn't always make the headlines, but quietly powers everything behind the scenes. The connection between MIS, pre-press, and production equipment in the packaging supply chain. Our guest today is someone who's been on the front lines of the industry, dedicated his career in the packaging space, building solutions to drive efficiency for packaging suppliers. So welcome, Lieven.
Thank you.
Today we talk a little bit about standardization or integration. It's a broad topic. It isn't just a tech issue. It's actually a business imperative. It's something what keeps on the lights at packaging suppliers, something what is important to have and for companies to transition to if they didn't do it already, and so on. But first of all, maybe can you explain a little bit more about yourself?
Okay. Well, I've been like you were saying, I've been around for a while. I joined this company in 1986, which is like a century ago. I think it was about 10 years ago. I decided to step away from team management and go into the technical aspects of integrating ESCO solutions with systems of other companies.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. So what does that actually mean then, integrating with, or the partner management and integrating with third party?
Well, it has different aspects. First, there is a business aspect, of course, which is more managed by colleagues of mine. There always has to be a win-win-win situation, meaning a win for the final customer that has the systems in place. There is a win for our partner company. There has to be something in it for them. And finally, also there has to be something in it for ESCO. That's the business aspect. So we have to get all parties agree that this is something we have to move forward with. And there is the initiative to base this on standardization. What's the alternative? That's going to your customer, doing an analysis, building a custom solution. But this way, you're reinventing the wheel over and over and over again. So we thought that it is a lot smarter to start with a baseline that is standardized, where we have a data layer, where the partner and our company agree on this is the kind of data that needs to go one way and the other, the communication platform, the workflows behind it. I use that as a base layer, which we can deploy in a very efficient and cost-effective way. And only then to talk about the special things that make this customer unique, and that he can plug in on top of that of that base layer.
So the fundamental layer is what we're looking at, but it's hard work, I guess, for the partners involved, for us building such a thing, educating, documenting, maintaining it, but also for the partners, so that it has to be also some value indeed on doing this. I guess that's a bit about the numbers. We're looking at business systems that we come across often, like MIS systems, and maybe also production equipment.
Yeah. So especially with introduction of digital printing. Digital printing is a digital machine, and when you drive it with the data, and that's the end goal. What you want to achieve is that the pressman only make sure that the machine works okay and is fed with the right substrates, but he is not. What you want to achieve is that guy is not busy with setting up the machine and giving and tuning the parameters. This should be completely streamlined production line.
So basically, push the button and go print. I think
and you can only push the button when the machine gets the jobs fed automatically without human touches.
Yeah, with all the required parameters or all the required data on setting up machine, doing lead in, lead out, those kind of things, maybe even for finishing, inspection, and so on. Okay.
Finishing is a bit, is more on the bleeding edge, I would say. That's less established, but you see initiatives also for feeding digital finishing machines with digital data.
Yeah. Okay. So when a system defines the processes and exchanges the data between prepress or a business system prepress and then eventually the production system, the quality of your data needs to be guaranteed. So is that also one of the reasons why we're looking at standardizing at least those data elements and the common language in the industry that we are using, so that it's easier to exchange that information and to make sure that what information goes into the business system that ripples through to the production?
Yeah, it depends on what you call quality. Like you have these standards like JDF, XJDF, but that's mainly how you package up the data.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people pay too much attention to that aspect. The real difficult thing, or where the real core of the solution is the data model.
Yeah.
How do you represent the real world objects that are going into the machine or coming out of the machine, and how do you define the parameters of the processes that need to be executed to turn the input into outputs. So the core of the solution, the real hard nut to crack, is the domain data model and all the expertise around it. You want to have a precise, reliable, secure data communication channel from point A to point B, but that is of secondary importance.
Yeah. So if I get it right, if I translate it in my own language, the packaging data model is, let's take the example of a label. It's a label, it's a piece of art, an artwork file, an Illustrator file, or a PDF file. It has a size to be printed on. It has knowledge about how many colors need to be printed on the surface, maybe on the back end. That is additional printing. Maybe it has knowledge about, if we think about hybrid printing, if which colors are printed in flexo, exactly what colors are printed in digital. That's what you're looking at. That's how you describe the packaging data model.
There is both a printing and a structural side to that, right? So if we think about a box, maybe a shoebox, it has two parts. There's a lid, there's a body. It can be printing on the outside of the box. It can be on of the body, on the inside of the body. You have the lids that can be printed. So there is a cache. How do you make that 3D shape out of a flat sheet of carton?
Yeah.
And then how does the printing and the finishing work on top of that?
Yeah.
Representing that, and making sure that there's a common understanding of between the business system driving it or the web to print system for that matter.
Yeah.
And then finally, how to translate that into production steps that lead to that intended result. That's the hard nut to crack.
And then not taking into account only printing, but also again the die cutting for the box example and all the other production steps.
Each partner approaches that problem or that topic from its own angle, and you have to meet in the middle, and that's where all the interesting discussion and work needs to happen.
And partners sometimes they might have a heritage coming from the commercial background,
yeah, that's pretty common. And then I've been active in several standardization groups, the Cantor Group and SIP4 since 2004, and you see a lot of almost all these groups come from a commercial print background. And packaging and labels is somewhat different.
Yeah.
And taking the concepts from one and copy paste to the other doesn't really work. I think more and more companies are, there are more and more companies active in the packaging and the label space. So they get confronted with these issues. So that understanding is also growing. But there's still a lot of fine tuning and aligning to that needs to happen.
Is there any advice you can give to customers looking at their next integration project, or maybe looking at partners out there to maybe they are in the market to change a business system, or they are in the market of buying a new pressed?
For sure. I mean, companies should be thinking about that. If you have a business system that is totally disconnected from your CAD department or your prepress department, you are losing money. Because you're, especially with shorter runs, the admin overheads that you have per job is growing out of proportion. The only way you can reduce that is by taking out all of the unnecessary overheads out of the process.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it's not only the admin overhead that you take out of the process by making sure that your data flows through the system. You take out all the necessary copy pastes from that you have at the interface between every systems, but it's also the risk of errors. Any human interaction there is not only inefficient, it is also a source of errors.
Yeah. If you transfer a job from one part to the other, or one department to the other, in a physical way, there is always a waiting time. There's always a file piling up at somebody's desk or in somebody's email box, like a task to do. When systems integrate, parts of those processes can be automated and can already be executed. So which reduces basically the waiting time and eventually also reduces the overall lead time. But yeah.
So that's one piece of advice. Just go for it. That's the biggest advice. The other piece of advice that I would like to give is there's a lot of companies thinking we are unique. Our way of working is the best ever, and we do things very different than our competitors do. Maybe that's true, but maybe it isn't. And I think the smarter way to go into this is to first go for that base layer that I was saying. So if you start such an integration project, first look at what is the standard integration. What does it offer me?
Yeah.
Chances are big that this is already a step that gets you 70% of the way. That gives you 70% of the benefits, at the expense that maybe you have to be willing to adapt the way you are working. But you already get 70% at a very low step-in costs.
Yeah.
Once you have that established, that base layer is in place and it runs fluently, then think about what can I do on top of this to make my own production line even more efficient than what that baseline allows me to do.
Yeah.
Take it as a phased approach and learn by taking those steps, learn what is really giving you benefits over your competitors versus what you think is giving you benefits over your competitor.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing, and maybe we use the term a lot, digital transformation, but I think it's more the digital evolution. So I really like the fact that our industry needs to think about the baseline. Everybody needs to manage files. Everybody needs to manage incoming files. Everybody needs to manage getting those print files print ready as quick as possible. Everybody needs to create a layout for whether it's sheet fed or roll fed. But also everybody needs to integrate and then transfer that data to the printing and finishing equipment. So that is indeed the commonalities, I guess, for the industry, and try to stick to those. And then on top, indeed, evolve over time based on market demands, customer demands, or new technologies, new equipment, and evolve that project. Are there any big challenges you see still that at customers running projects that they might overlook or might not think of when, or what are indicators maybe when projects could go sideways? Like what is a red flag?
So let me try to answer that. I think it's a red flag when you see that company thinks this is only a technology thing. So we'll introduce that and all our problems are solved. Introduction of integration does not work if people are not prepared to go through a process change. So the impact of hooking up those systems together, automating the whole flow, has a huge impact on the way people work.
Yeah.
So if you're not willing to adapt the way you work, your processes, you will not get the benefits of the integration. Actually, it works in the inverse way. If you introduce a technology change without the willingness to adapt to change your processes, it's going to be counterproductive. People are resisted. Yeah, your people will resist it and will try to prove in all ways possible that this system does not work.
And as we live in a creative industry, people are very creative.
They will find out a million reasons why that thing is not good.
Yeah, probably one of the things is we've always done it like that, and why would you have to change? It's one of the main reasons that we
it's processes. Your people have to be behind the plan, be prepared to change.
Yeah.
Change management is probably the good word we have to throw here in the middle.
Yeah. It's important to bring the right people on board to drive such a digital transformation in the first thing, and then evolve over time. You mentioned already you've been around quite a while in this industry. You've seen quite some change from maybe even conventional plate making, then digital plate making, then digital printing technology, and so on. What's one thing that stayed the same over all these years, and maybe also what is one thing that is different throughout all these throughout your career working on this?
Oh, that's the $1 million question. One thing that's remained the same from my experience is the value of domain expertise. So knowing, having a thorough understanding of what packaging is, the different types of packaging, how they are produced, what works, what doesn't work, that remains that always remains the same. And yes, there are technologies that evolve, but that's a matter of incremental change.
Yeah, but then that's one thing that we know very well, or because of our customers in the converter space, how they produce. But then there's another big unknown is how designers make their files and how they prepare and how to catch all these things. So that may be another challenge for a lot of those converters, getting maybe inadequate files or unprepared files, so they have to catch it.
You see with the different schools there or different areas. I think also there is, especially at the incoming side of the converters, there is more quality control. You see But in commercial print, that was more common already for quite a long time. You have the incoming files are checked with pre-flight tools, and they are either accepted or rejected. If they are rejected, a lot of cases, okay, it's back to the customer. I think in the converter space and packaging, that was a bit different. They would say, okay, let everything come to deal it, and I will fix it. Yeah, I think also there, by the fact that all they can't charge that much anymore for prepress costs. Also there you get that attitude of, okay, you deliver high quality data, I produce. You don't deliver high quality data, well, you will have to do better next time.
Yeah. And I think also that it really depends on what type of customers you have, from the large brand owners working with PMAs or trade shops preparing the files properly.
Yeah,
for them managing
case they are not, the converter is not even allowed to change the content of the file.
And there's that here. And maybe one thing that has changed dramatically.
I think the pressure on, well, has it changed or didn't it change? That's the way you look at it. But I think there is an acceleration in the pressure on speed to market.
Yeah.
There's shorter runs for many reasons. There's local variations, there's languages, there's regulations, there's marketing campaigns. So the run lengths are getting squeezed. The time to get to production is getting shorter and shorter. So the pressure on efficiency is growing, and the change is that this thing is accelerating.
Yeah, and it's even, I think, one of the extra of factors is definitely digital print, and the advantages that it has for digital print, but then also digital finishing and so on. So that is even driving more of those changes. You touched upon this, but let's maybe talk a bit about the evergreens in our industry. It's you mentioned it yourself a bit, but like JDF or API, common language, trying to standardize this. For as long as I've been in the company, it seems to be an ongoing debate, and whether we need to go with JDF or API or. But what's your take on this? Is that important?
Well, it's also like I think I touched upon that in a previous answer. For me, and that's my personal opinion, it's a secondary issue. The real core is the data model and the data you represent, and you can represent the data models can be represented in different ways. You could do that in XML, you can do that in JSON, you can do that in JDF. JDF has the advantage that at least for some parts of the industry, there's a common way of representing the same. So the jacket in which you put the data, the structure of the data elements is the same.
Yeah,
and that helps.
And it has a printing background, JDF, compared to other data.
Well, yeah. So JDF is there's two sides to that story. To be honest, JDF didn't live up to the dreams. The dream when I started in 2004 was this is going to change the world, and we're going to drive the whole production chain in the printing industry. That didn't happen. We have to be honest about this. This didn't happen. It found inroads into prepress, found inroads to drive digital presses, and other equipment in the commercial print industry. But that's about it.
Yeah.
So it didn't expand beyond that. The level of adoption and standardization, there has been a lot of variations on the standard model. There were a lot of proprietary extensions to it. So also there, the interoperability promise didn't completely materialize neither. Other side of the medal is there is no other better standard than JDF that can replace it.
Yeah.
Which has a broad adoption. So yeah, I think JDF does the job for the areas where it was where it's really was successful in business system to pre-press to digital presses to some of the equipments, and there is no real alternative for it.
Yeah.
You see that in other areas. If you look at web to print system, carbon footprint, all the systems that we want to integrate with these days, the chances that JDF will find inroads there are zero.
Yeah.
So it's there. It's really an API game. API also needs data models, needs way of communicating with each other, but all of those, there is no standardization whatsoever. These are all bespoke interfaces, which raises the bar. The effort that you need to put into integrate systems to with each other is bigger because you're each time doing a one-on-one communication.
Yeah,
and that creates a business model, of course, for these iPaaS solutions that allow you to build connectors and click connectors together to have a low programming effort on integrating.
And those connectors are then like a data model.
They can translate data model to data model. You can implement a business logic there that maps one API with one data model to another API with another data model.
And without these solutions, there is an API first, then it's programming, then it's custom. Okay, let's wrap this up. Thanks, Lieve, for spending some time with us. This was a very interesting episode with your technical expertise bringing to the show. So thanks for this.
My pleasure.